excited to be hosting what is going to be the most efficient and exciting panel this afternoon for our conference. We're here to talk about Census 2020, super important. And we're going to do two things today. First, we're going to hear from this panel of tremendous experts around why the census is important and some things that we could be doing to ensure a good count. And then you're actually going to work together at your tables to generate some ideas around how we can make sure that the count is as solid as possible. And if you have not already, please join at slido.com, #Census2020, because we want to capture all of the amazing ideas that you come up with. 2020, the census, right around the corner. 4 months, is that right? A 4-month window that we have?
30 days.
30
Meaning kickoff is in just
March
Yes,
12th.
kickoff is March 12th, I guess.
March 12th is the day that we start to get counted.
Okay, and I think let's just jump right in and let's start with Sheena. Why don't you tell me what's at stake in 2020 and why is ensuring a complete count so important?
A lot is at stake, and I would just say the headlines are it's about money and representation.
Okay.
So studies show, and Meeta helped me with this data, between $650 billion and $1.5 trillion gets allocated to states based on just the number of people that live there. And if we don't do the count right in New York City, we are screwed, basically. Those dollars go to fund transportation. Think about our transportation infrastructure. They go to fund education, health care, so many things that are critically important. And so in terms of the money, the other piece is representation. They determine how many congressional seats we get. The current projections are that if we do as poorly as we did last time around, we will lose 2 congressional seats. So that means many voices of people that we care about and communities we represent will not have adequate representation.
Wow, that's for real. Jennifer, we've heard the data and the numbers, but what would an undercount really look like on the ground in the communities that we work in?
So since we're in New York City, we're going to talk about New York City. Here in New York City in 2010, the count was 62% compared to a national average of 76%. So we already lost money. The Census Bureau is estimating that that number may drop again. And the people who are often most undercounted are people of color, regardless of income, immigrants, and children. Children, to a significant degree, are undercounted. It's estimated that in the 2010 census, as many as 1 million children were undercounted. What is that going to look like? When federal funding is tied to census data, and we're talking about programs, as many as 132 programs that touch upon, that deal with child care block grant, the Community Development Block Grant, Head Start, WIC, SNAP, Medicaid, CHIP, all of those programs impact children and families. So a low count means that there'll be much fewer dollars going out to community-based organizations that are providing those services and supports. It's real. It's very real. I mean, it's estimated that a 1% drop alone could be as much as $1,100 per person who's not counted.
Wow. Meeta, how should we be thinking specifically about our immigrant communities, especially given the recent citizenship question?
Sure. First thing I want to say is immigrants are just us, right? They're just like us. So first thing is thinking about and thinking like what we all want and deserve, that's what our immigrant communities want and deserve. And we've heard about money and we've heard about power. And I would like to add the third prong we talk about at New York Immigration Coalition, respect. So the other thing we want from, achieving a full census count is having our story told, showing who we are, reflecting who we are, and not letting someone else tell our story for us. It's also a unique way to engage in civic participation, civic engagement. If you think about it, voting, there's certain restrictions around voting. Citizenship, age, sometimes, whether or not you're a felon, so ex-felon or felon. And everyone counts in the census. Specifically for immigrant communities, obviously they want the same representation, the same funding, but the fears are slightly higher. The citizenship question did not help that. Good news, it's not on the census. Bad news, not everyone knows that. But it gives us a unique opportunity because people are engaging in conversations about this. And the ability to engage in a conversation about the census allows us to then find out what matters to a person and engage with them around that, whether it's schooling, whether it's making sure infrastructure is okay. Like the same inherent needs exist. And talking about the citizenship question and assuaging the fears about providing the very limited data that's asked on the census is what's going to enable us to actually engage the immigrant communities.
Super. Melva, this year the census is going to be primarily online for the first time. How will that impact the potential to undercount?
Absolutely. So where there are tremendous opportunities by having the census done online, there's also some drawbacks, right? So we know that there's still a huge digital divide in the country, and specifically in New York State and New York City. Our city controller did a report this summer that talked about the number of households that either don't have technology at home or don't want to use technology at home or don't have reliable high-speed broadband, right? We're talking about 29% of New York City households don't have access to broadband. We're talking about 30% of Latino and African American households don't have broadband. We're talking about 17 neighborhoods that don't have the infrastructure that support high-speed access. And we're also talking about communities like our older population and low educational attainment who are, again, most likely not to have computers. So what does that mean? How do we make sure that individuals who want to fill out the census form can do that online? And it's important that we create an infrastructure here in New York City, and with many of my partners here in the city of New York, we are doing that, but where people can go to places where they can not only fill out the form online, but they can ask questions, and get answers in the languages that they speak, but also with cultural competency, right? Understanding what that means for them. But there's tremendous drawbacks. But then there's also opportunities, right? It's an opportunity to get real-time data on communities and census tracts that are not responding well to the census so that we can then deploy our resources to those neighborhoods. So where there's some opportunities, there's also some drawbacks.
So what best practices are you seeing in your organizations? I mean, you all work in some of the most important organizations serving our communities. What best practices do you see for ensuring a great count that you can share with our colleagues? You can go in any order.
So I'll jump in.
Super.
So FPWA works with community-based organizations and with faith institutions. Appreciating that several people on this panel are working directly with community-based organizations, we said we'd pick up the faith piece. And so partnering with the United Jewish Association, with Catholic Charities, the Interfaith Center of New York, with Council of People's Organizations, with the Sikh community, and others, we have established an Interfaith Census 2020 coalition. And the aim of that coalition is to reach out and engage with 10,000 houses of worship across the city of New York, appreciating that often it's faith leaders who are the trusted persons and resources in the community. So when we have people who are afraid, whether they be immigrant, whether they be, impoverished people, and they're anxious about giving the government their information, having trusted persons, individuals, institutions, help them understand the value add of completing the census, helping them to understand that if you're counted, then that's going to help with your representation ultimately, that's going to help to ensure that the resources that you need are here in the community when you need them. So what we're doing is we're giving faith leaders information. We've got a faith leaders toolkit. You can go to www.interfaithcensus2020.nyc, interfaithcensus2020.nyc, and what you'll get at that website is a faith leaders toolkit that speaks to all different faith communities here in New York and helps people to understand what are some of the barriers if you're of the Jewish faith or you're of the Muslim faith. How do you engage with somebody who may be of the Catholic faith and doesn't understand exactly what they need to do? Giving you the tools, helping you to understand everything from raising public awareness to actually how to complete the count.
Super.
Sure, I'll go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have now announced you all to be census ambassadors. So now you've all pledged that you're going to fill out the census and you're going to get all your friends and family to do it. And that's actually one of the most effective things we can do is just speak to every last person and get the message out. New York Immigration Coalition, as a result of the citizenship question kerfuffle, helped to form New York Counts 2020, which is a statewide coalition of organizations working on a fair and accurate census in New York. With that, we seek to empower organizations to have the tools they need to be able to have a full and accurate count. And I'm also going to do the website thing, www.newyorkcounts, spelled out, 2020.org. And we have resources for regardless of which community you want to reach out to. And it's very simple to think about, actually. There's an incredible map, hard to count map. Those of you that pay attention to census, it's created by a gentleman named Steve Romalewski, who actually tweeted that our website is amazing, so I'm very excited. So his map allows people to go on and understand their communities and what is needed, like what is the demographic of the community you're trying to reach. From there, though, you can do really simple things. You can put an email signature block in your email saying fill out the census and include the URL. You can buy an ink stamp that says fill out this census. And Melva was speaking about language access. One of the great things we've seen one of our member organizations do is they've dubbed one of the census videos. The Census Bureau has a video called Internet Self-Response, and it tells you how to what it's going to look like and how to fill it out. They dubbed over it in Korean so that you can just spread it out on WhatsApp to your friends and family. So if you've got a language capability, you could dub over it in whatever language that is and make sure that that language access is available to your community.
Great. And maybe just to follow up on that, United Way of New York City, we work with about 500 community-based organizations all over the city, obviously, in our work around self-sufficiency and really working on behalf of low-income New Yorkers. And with regard to the census, we're partnering with the city to help manage the Complete Count Fund, which is an unprecedented investment in community-based organizations to make sure that we do the outreach, the communication, and enable community-based organizations who, as Jennifer said, are the trusted messengers, the trusted partners of individuals who are undercounted to make sure that we get out the count. So we've been able to really see and be a part of and partner and participate with very creative, innovative organizations and ideas on how to get this done. And I would say that there are two main categories that have been most compelling. One is organizations that embed the work around the census into their work and make that direct connection. So if you are a Head Start program, or if you're providing social service and benefits access to a client, saying, we really need you to fill out the census because we're going to lose some slots in Head Start, or we're not going to have these resources available for our children. And the other part is really thinking about census and the census engagement work as empowering. I mean, this is like a civil rights issue. So we have organizations, and we are really hoping that, because the census happens every 10 years, it's a little sleepy. It's like, oh yeah, it's a civic thing you gotta do. But, based on how it's been weaponized this time around, it's about voice, right? It's about respect, it's about representation. So things that we're doing to build civic engagement and advocacy, and I just wanna give a shout out to one of the organizations, Generation Citizen. I saw Denora earlier. Where are you? There you are. They created an amazing curriculum for high school students to learn about the census, but then to go out and launch a campaign in their communities. So if we can get this in the hands of hundreds of schools and teachers and communities, and particularly the immigrant community, often their children are the gateway with government. And so if we can activate that, and now these kids are going to be on fire for the election, around climate change, they're going to be equipped and empowered, but how we bake that into tenant associations, block associations, advocacy for affordable housing, that's really powerful and impactful.
Yeah, if I may just add, the real aim is that by March 12th, everybody, in New York City will have heard about the census and know that when that postcard drops, they need to act.
Right.
And one of the things that is a best practice that we also tell people is, if you do not want government knocking on your door, when you get that postcard on March 12th,
Fill it out.
fill it out, go online, make the phone call, take care of it then. Because the longer you go without completing the census, the greater the likelihood that government is going to show up at the door
Absolutely.
and ask you some questions.
Melva, take us home.
Sure, absolutely. I'll take you home. So at ABNY, we are very clear that we might not be the best trusted voices, as we talked about, right? So I think the locks, for you hip hop heads out there, the locks, Little Kim and DMX said it right, money, power, respect, right? That's what the census is about. And it's about who is actually communicating that to communities. So what we are doing at ABNY, where we are an almost 50-year-old civic and business organization, is empowering our partners and those individuals on the ground to make sure that they have the support and the resources to do the messaging and to do the outreach to our underserved and undercounted communities. And we're doing that in two different ways. So one, what we're doing is we're activating what we're calling the non-traditional partners, right? So we're getting sectors and industries, of course, New York City, who would normally participate in the census to activate, right? We're working with retailers. You know, especially a lot of retailers, their employees come from hard-to-count communities, making sure that they are designating time during the day, during work hours, for them to fill out their census form at work, right? We're working with, the Greater New York Hospital Association. Their membership sees, over millions of people every year. They're activating their spaces so that they can not only inform patients and reach out to patients, but everyone who comes through the doors of those hospitals. So we are really working with an array of different non-traditional partners throughout New York City and providing them with the tools, including messaging, including volunteers, including technology, so that they can hold census days, they can hold worker days, really to get out the count. The second thing we're doing is we launched a pro bono pop-up PR agency for the community-based organizations that are doing this work. We can tap into our network at ABNY, communication specialists, PR specialists, and lend them having one-on-one relationships with community-based organizations who are out there in the field with messaging, digital tools, all sorts of PR marketing resources so that they can accurately get out the count. So we really want to support the good folks who are on the ground doing the work and using the resources of New York City. We are an incredibly resourced city. We are lucky in that way. Because the stakes are so high, we are really making sure that we are activating everyone in all corners of New York City so that we can get a fair and accurate count in 2020.
Speaking of activating everyone, we're about to activate this whole entire room because it's your turn now. First, join me in thanking this dynamic panel. What you are now going to do at your table is you all are the community organizations that these folks are supporting and helping to resource, but you all have some ideas about how to make sure that we are not undercounting. We've heard that it's about money, it's about power, it's about respect, and that's incredibly important for the communities that we serve. So what we want you to spend the next 15 minutes doing is talking with your colleagues at your table, sharing ideas that you might have to think about how you and your organization might optimize your resources, your space, your people, your time to help the people that you serve ensure that they complete the census count. And what we'd like you to do is any suggestions that you have, we'd love to capture them at slido.com, hashtag Census2020. All of those answers will upload to us and we'll share them out. So for the next 15 minutes, if you and your colleagues would talk amongst yourselves, and join me just one more time in thanking these ladies.